Okay, so first off, you need to ask yourself why. Why do you want to lift your Jeep Cherokee? I mean, is it really, do you want to just look cool? Or maybe you drive in remote areas, you need some high clearance. Maybe you just, you bought a Jeep and maybe someone, the last previous owner has like a half a lift kit on it. Maybe it doesn't really feel right. This actually happens all the time, you know. So if you're in the process of lifting your own Jeep, or maybe you just want to know a little bit more information, this video is for you. So stick around. So lifting a Jeep Cherokee is a little bit harder than you may first imagine. If you just have like a pickup truck or something, like a Toyota or Chevy, sometimes you can just get away with buying some lift blocks or some shackles or something. It's not so easy in a Jeep Cherokee though. When you install a lift, you got to understand that you're now putting a stress on all the parts that they didn't actually have before. So parts are going to wear out faster. And the higher you lift your Jeep, the more that can go wrong. Before we lift anything, before we touch anything, just run out to your Jeep real fast and measure from the top of your axle tube to your frame rail on the front and the back. Now for the front, it's gonna be this, and for the back, right there. This is with a Dana 30 and 35. I don't know about the other axles. Of course, they're going to have different axle tube sizes, so plus or minus maybe 1/4 inch or something. But this is enough to get you started. Or just if you don't know what axles you have, just measure it right now. And so when you're done, you know what you're going to have. Okay, so basic types of lift. There's a lot of selection here. You can get pretty much as creative as you want, you know, with mixing and matching all the different parts or brands you want to buy. But for a budget lift, let's call this, you know, maybe a 1 to 2 inch lift. This is really for someone who drives their Jeep daily. Maybe you just want something a little bit bigger, look a little bit taller, or you're just trying to fit like the next biggest size of tire, you know. Now, the requirements for this are going to be shocks all around. You're going to need coils up front. You need some leaf springs for the back, and main parts are actually going to follow you wherever you want, whatever lift you end up having. You're going to have these same parts for every lift. So I always recommend start with lifting your Jeep with the springs, like the coils and the leaves first. Then you could slightly adjust this, with the shackles or like the coil overs, so you can get plus or minus, half an inch or so, just to hone it in. Don't lift your Jeep with only bricks or blocks or these isolators here. So it's just gonna get stiffer and stiffer. Your Jeep will get taller, but it will not ride comfortable at all. So the next lift is a happy medium. This is like a 3 to 4 inch lift, okay? Most people actually go for this one. Really, if you still want to drive this daily, but you want to have a little bit more fun on the weekends, have more clearance, of course, it's going to look great. But the drivability is going to be affected, okay? So, and you're going to have to slow down when you go to corners, okay? Because your center of gravity is a little bit higher. I know it's just a few inches or so, 3 or 4 inches high, but you're going to feel it. Okay, so the requirements for this lift, it's going to be everything I just mentioned for the 1 or 2 inch lift. Of course, start off with your springs, your coils, your leaves. Make some adjustments here with maybe some shackles or the coilovers. We're going to need some lower control arms. You're going to need longer sway bar lengths if you still want to have a front sway bar. You're going to need longer brake lines. Now you can get away with having your brake lines moved for the front. You can move them, but it's just easier to buy the longer brand new hoses, because you probably have the rubber ones up front. Get the stainless steel, the braided ones, and they'll be longer too, so that if you want to go even higher later, then you don't have to change these again. For the back, you definitely need another brake line too. So whatever. Now, finally, this actually kind of brings us up to the death wobble term here. So once you get to about 4 inches or so of lift, this is really where most people kind of start feeling or experiencing death wobble for the first time. Now, it really happens when your front axle isn't lined up just right. You see that there's this track bar that connects to your frame to the front. So the higher you lift, the track bar is going to drag the axle over towards like the driver's side. So you're going to have to get this fixed, okay, to correct the angles. You're going to be driving sideways down the road. Now you only have 3 options here when it comes to correcting this track bar issue. And this is probably 80 to 90% of death wobble right here. People just not addressing the track bar. There are other things that can cause it, but this is the biggest one here. So you really only have 3 options. There are those who chose to lift their Jeep, but they don't want to spend any extra money on this track bar. But you could just drill a new hole. Others have done it. You drill a new hole to move the track bar over a little bit. I would say this is the worst possible option though. Right now, when you're drilling a hole through a piece of metal, you're weakening it, okay? So it could, it's not very precise at all. You don't know exactly where to drill. And it won't accommodate for your changing lift. Let's say you put in 4-inch springs or something, but over, a period of a few months or so, it sags down to like a 3. It's not gonna ride right because it's not adjusting for you. Now, if your Jeep is solely for like a trail rig or your backyard or hunting rig or something like that, where you always have it on a trailer, you're going pretty slow, that's fine. You go ahead and drill the hole out. That's okay. But if it was me, I wouldn't feel safe about driving on a freeway on this thing. I mean, just imagine the entire weight of the front axle. I mean, that's a heavy axle with the wheels, the tires, all the stuff combined on it, and all the weight is held in place by this one little hole, or this one little bolt here. So I guess this brings us to option number 2, a track bar relocation kit. It's just a bracket, okay? It's the same thing here. You're just putting on a bracket. And again, I don't really see this as a good option either because it doesn't accommodate your changing lift. Again, if you go to 4-inch or 3-inch or what, it doesn't change. It's just right there, and you could still have issues. And plus, some of these are made out of some really cheap metals, and they could twist and bend, and you don't want an accident like this on the freeway. Option 3, just buy that track bar, okay? Buy the adjustable track bar too. It's going to be brand new, of course. It's going to be beefier, better than what you already have for stock, and both of the joints are going to be brand new, so everything's going to be nice and tight, okay? And it's going to be secure. If you get this adjustable one, then there you go. You can adjust it to maybe a 3.5-inch lift or 4.5 or even bigger. This is the best choice. Just get the track bar, get the adjustable one to help you out in the future. Now, the track bar, like I said before, it's not the only cause of death wobble. I'd say a good 80% of it or so it is. A couple extra things to keep in mind is that make sure your track bar is parallel to your steering, your drag link. If you only go up to about 4 inches or so, this shouldn't really be an issue until you go higher. But your control arms have to also be properly adjusted. Lastly, the steering stabilizer is not a cure for death wobble. Everyone says, just get a new stabilizer. It's just there. It's just a shock. That's all it is. It just dampens the steering so it doesn't jerk back and forth. It just dampens it, okay? It's not a cure for death wobble. Where were we? We were at 4 inches. 4 inches plus, okay? If we cross that 4-inch lift, of course, you need coils, you need to get the springs, you need to get shocks all around, make sure they all match. Now, some additional requirements here. You're also going to need, you may need a slip yoke eliminator kit or a hack and tap setup. So you have to get your driveline angles just right, because now when you're going so high, now that when you lift up this high, your driveline angle is not going to line up right. So you're going to have to get this corrected. You may also need to modify or actually get a brand new drive shaft. Get one with double cardan joints. That way, it's okay, and then it can handle all the extreme angles. Now, some older, like 84 up to maybe 93, 94 Jeep Cherokees, I've heard of a lot of them, they can get away with maybe like a transfer case drop. You can put in like a 1-inch drop on it, for like a 4-inch lift. And that can actually help out with the angles a little bit here. Now, every Jeep is different. It just depends on the exact lift, the exact parts you put in, what's already worn out, what axles you have. Sometimes you just have to install everything and take it on a drive and see if it shakes. And if it does, then you got to start checking things out. I've heard that if you have like a 96 or later Jeep, almost always you need something to correct these angles here. So you're gonna have to have some kind of a new driveline or a slip yoke eliminator kit or something. When you get up to 4.5 inch lift, yes, coils, springs, shocks, but now it's time to address the upper control arms. For the upper control arms on the front axle, you're gonna have to get the kind where they adjust, okay? And hopefully you've already got the adjustable lower control arms when you got your 4-inch lift, okay? So make sure everything is adjustable so you can tune this in just right. Okay? It's also recommended to upgrade your steering now. Once you get up to 4.5 inch, maybe 5 inch or so, fix your steering. You could install like a drop pitman arm. Again, this is just to make sure the track bar and the steering drag link are at the same, they're parallel to each other, okay? Correct those angles so no death wobble. You could do something like you can get rid of all of your steering if you really want it and go with like an over the knuckle setup. There's a few different types out there, but really now's the time to start looking at steering components once you get this high. And don't forget to get the correct shocks every single time you jump from a 3 to a 3.5 to 4.5 and so on. So make sure those shocks are the correct size that you need. When you get to 5 inches and above, yes, you're gonna need coils, springs, shocks. Make sure they match or piece it together. But you're actually gonna hit a fork in the road here at 5 inches and above. You have two major choices here. You can keep your 4 control arms on your front on your front axle here, or you can replace them with long arms. So with the long arms, they actually mount farther back towards like where the on the unibody rail meets the crossbar. It gives a much better lift, a ride feel, better articulation when you're moving out there. If you do stay with the short arms, and most people actually get the drop brackets, so you can drop them the control arms down a little bit. It'll give you better geometry, and you're not going to feel as much of the road bounce. Now, at this point, you probably ask, why lift everything up if you're just going to start dropping it down again, with the drop brackets, and then maybe the transfer case drop you've done too, This might be an argument to actually go with the long arms, but if you're happy with it now, why change it? It's your Jeep. If you do go with the long arms here, and you start cutting off the original brackets there is no going back. You need to entirely cut off the brackets for the lower control arms where it meets into the frame rail. And then, because they're just going to be in the way, you don't want to hit those or anything, so you have to completely take them out. Now for 6 inches and above lift, okay? This is for those who are really building a trail rig, okay? Something it is not meant for the city. You are building a monster truck here. With the right modifications, you can do pretty much anything here, okay? The requirements for this one is everything. Yeah, everything. You need, everything I've mentioned here and probably more. Now, you can really just kind of use your imagination and have some fun. No matter what lift you actually decide on, you ultimately select, it's always recommended to get an alignment done, rotate all your tires if needed, and don't forget to come back later, re-torque, retighten everything down, because your parts, the nuts, the bolts, they come loose, okay? You have to come back and make sure they're still tight after 50 to 100 miles or so. Yes, tires, they can actually give you a little bit of lift. A lot of people forget about this. So, if you get some monster tires on there, that right there is an inch, maybe 2 inch lift. Just depends on what tires you're getting. Just keep in mind though, if you are going the route of lifting and going through this trouble of getting bigger tires, bigger wheels, your speedometer is not going to be accurate anymore. They do sell some gears that you put in your transfer case to correct this, so you'll know how fast you're going. You just have to do some more research and buy the correct gear for your size. With all of this information, you should have a general idea as to what it's like lifting a Jeep Cherokee now. And in another video, I'll show you what lift I kind of went with, what I chose, what I went through, and some tips and tricks, things to remember. If anyone has anything that I didn't mention here, leave a comment down below. And if you haven't already done yet, hit that like or subscribe button. Now's your chance. Yeah? Okay.